Thank you everyone for joining us for the latest in a series of webinars from B2W Software. Today's webinar, as the slide here will show you, is leveraging the assignment capabilities inside of B2W Schedule. So we'll be really looking at some very core central functionality in the B2W Schedule element, but also looking at how that affects other elements as well, specifically B2W Track. So quick introduction, my name is Tom Willey. I am a Senior Solutions Engineer for B2W Software. I've been with the company for about 14 years. I started out as a product trainer, and then I headed up the implementation team for a while, and then I've been in solutions engineering for quite a while now. Riding shotgun with me today is Mark Hooks. Mark Hooks is basically very similar in terms of his career path. He started as a product trainer, went into implementation for a while, and then saddled up next to me in solutions engineering. Mark will be playing a fairly silent role today. He'll be monitoring the questions panel. So here's a quick overview of the session. First, what we'll do is we'll kind of do a high-level overview of the two elements that we're going to be looking at inside the functionality of the webinar. So talking a little bit about B2W Schedule, B2W Track, kind of setting the stage for what they do and how they work together. Then when we look at leveraging those assignments, we'll spend a little bit of time talking about assignment types. And so those first two bullets are going to be in PowerPoint. We'll kind of overview what assignments are and what types of assignments we won't be looking at in the webinar, but are important to know that the system does. And then the last two bullets we'll really be doing within the software itself. So we'll be creating and managing assignments. I'm showing you some of those different assignment types that we described and the specific capabilities inside of Schedule. And also, as the second bullet, how those assignments can affect Track, and also what needs are, how needs are implemented inside of Track and Schedule, how they work together. So what we'll look at first is for folks that might have neither or one or the other of the elements, what are B2W Schedule and B2W Track? So on the left here, B2W Schedule is the logistics and resource planning tool inside of the B2W operational suite of products. And so assignments are really the core function of what it does. It allows you to assign resources to jobs and places, and then manage resource availability. So it lets you see what resources you have, where they're currently assigned, and it lets you see what you have available to assign. So it lets you look at that information over a wide period of time, retains the data indefinitely, and so it really is a visual tool to replace that whiteboard. What do I have? Where is it? What jobs do I have coming up? And what resources do I have to fulfill those jobs? And then the last bullet, probably one of the most important pieces, is that it collaborates with Track. So we'll talk about this when we go into the software, but essentially Schedule and Track use one single SQL database. So the information that you're putting into Schedule is something that can be consumed and used to assist B2W Track. Moving over to the right hand of the PowerPoint here, B2W Track is the field tracking and analysis module of the operational suite of products. So it allows you to track your production quantities, your employee labor hours, your equipment hours, as well as things like materials, subcontractors, and trucking, and essentially gather daily information about what you have done against those jobs and see how you're performing in real time. So real-time reporting, both cost and productivity, and also the information that you've gathered can be exported and sent to payroll. And it collaborates with Schedule, and Schedule and Track together have bi-directional communication. So Track users could see the schedule. By creating assignments inside of Schedule, you can feed what we call the field log, or the daily data collection, to set up that field log for you and make it easier and faster for staff in the field to track those quantities and labor and equipment hours, because most of the work has been done up front. So before we jump into the software, again, we'll be looking at how to leverage these assignments. But what do assignment mean? What types of assignments do we have? So what we'll be looking at today are crew assignments. So being able to take a combination of labor and equipment and maybe a foreman and assigning them all as one bundle. But we'll also be showing you how you can assign individual employee and equipment assets. So you don't necessarily need to have crews. Those are really the lion's share of the different types of assignments. We'll also look at something called events, which is not truly speaking an assignment, but it's basically a placeholder It allows you to allocate an event to a given resource, which helps in managing its availability. Then we'll look at how we manage and modify the assignments. So once we've created them, what are some of the things that we can do? Because as we know in the scheduling universe, creating those assignments and putting a plan in place is great, but almost all of our clients say that that real environment is very fluid. So almost as soon as you create an assignment, you're modifying it because the real conditions on the ground change. So how can we do that in the system, and what are some ways of doing that efficiently? And then the last thing, we'll look at needs and assignments. So how those two can work together. And a need is basically just a request for a resource, a placeholder. You could almost think of it as a pre-assignment, where you're asking for something that could then become an assignment if you give it a resource. So those are the types of assignments that are really core to the system and what we'll be looking at today. But I'm going to move to one more slide here. I think it's important for people to know that there's lots of other assignment types in the system. With a 30-minute webinar, we really don't have time to go through all of the functionality of the system. We really just have time to kind of scratch the surface and give a high-level overview. So I think it's important for folks to understand that B2W Schedule does so much more than we'll be showing today. You can do equipment move assignments. So if you assign a piece of equipment that isn't self-mobile, the system can manage those equipment moves. You can also create material orders. So you can order material and see what materials are needed and fill those orders, both temporary and permanent materials. So temporary materials being things like jersey barriers or steel plates that you'd place on site but then recover. And then related to that, we also have a really powerful mass haul tool. So once you've created those material orders, the mass haul view or the mass haul assignments allows you to allocate specific either internal or subcontracted or even brokered trucks to facilitate those material moves. And then last but not least, we can also do production target assignments. And those are essentially putting a quantity target against a crew for a specific cost code. So helping in terms of setting some productivity expectations. So all things that Schedule does, but we won't have time to go into too much detail on today. Now that we've looked at the two elements and what assignments we're going to go into, I'm going to leave the world of PowerPoint here, and we'll go into the software itself. So again, just a quick overview. These are the three elements that make up the operational suite of products: B2W Schedule, B2W Track, and that's what we'll be spending most of our time on, as well as B2W Maintain. Remember, all of these elements share a single SQL database. So if I put data into the database, it becomes available and usable to all the elements. So things like jobs, equipment, employees, etc., are all one shared pool. So starting here in B2W Schedule, this is where those assignments become crucial, because I can see my jobs on the left, and you'll see different views. Again, we don't have time to really go into the full depth of functionality for Schedule, but know that you can create an unlimited number of your own custom views where you can create and view and modify assignments. I'll be sticking primarily in this job sites and places assignments, so I can see on the left-hand side all of my jobs, and I would be able to see inside those jobs, any resources that I had assigned. So let's say for Fox Hill development here, I want to assign a crew. I could do a number of things. I could swipe across the dates I want to assign a crew for, or I could also use the tools over on the left-hand side to create crew assignments and a number of other aspects. So different ways of doing it. I'm going to use that swiping of dates here, and I'm going to create a crew assignment. Now, as I'm doing this, the assignments are, again, they're kind of trying to essentially be as efficient as possible. So one of the first things it's going to do is really just show me the available resources. So it's purposefully going to hide any crews that are already assigned on the dates that I need this crew for. So I can go through and I can grab, I'll say Tom Willey's pipe crew, and I'll add that into the assignment window. Now, there's a lot of other capability that I can do in this assignment window. So I can start to modify pretty much anything you see here. So for example, for Tom's pipe crew, I might come in and remove one or two resources. I might replace that with somebody else, or I could augment the crew by adding more resources. I could also modify the dates of that assignment, so I could add or remove more days. I can also change the default assignment times. So you'll see here it starts out and says, you're going from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's a default that you can control at the business unit level, but I might change that. I might make it more or less. I might also choose to put in notes, so I can actually say something like, don't forget your PPE. And that information is all part of the assignment and can be imparted in the system, and as you'll see later on, inside of B2W Track as well. So I'm going to add that assignment to the schedule. That's great. I've now assigned that crew. But I can also, again, start to modify things to make them more specific. So I can see all those resources in there, but I might go into, say, Aaron Baker, and I might, edit that specific assignment. I might say that one employee, maybe they're part of something that's going to take place a little bit later on. So rather than have them show up at 7 a.m. and be done at 5, I might say, well, they're going to show up a little bit later. They're going to show up more like 8 o'clock in the morning. So I've saved that assignment. I've kind of modified it and leveraged some of the detail. So what we're going to do now is look at how can I leverage that assignment. I'm going to go to B2W Track. Off to the side here, I have my mobile app, and I'm going to mirror it on screen using Air Server. And as soon as Air Server fires up, that's going to allow me to see the iPad on screen. And so we'll really be able to look at what is on my mobile app. So while I'm doing that, for any folks that have both of these elements or either of the elements, one thing to keep in mind when you see this here in just a moment, just keep in mind that anytime you have the B2W Track program and the B2W Schedule program, you do have the ability to get read-only licenses for B2W Schedule and Track. Track users would be able to reach out and actually see this schedule as part of their Track license. You can, from the mobile app, you can actually see B2W Schedule, and that's part of the license. So not only would a Track user be able to simply bring up the screen here and look at it, but more importantly, the way they can really leverage that schedule is by creating a field log. And so when I go to create field log, I could make it from scratch. I could also copy my last field log, or I would be able to create from schedule. And so when I do that, I'm leveraging from inside of B2W Schedule the assignments for employees and equipment. So I'm going to create the field log for today. And the first thing I want you to see is there's the list of the employees that came in. And notice specifically that I've got Aaron, Brad, and Tom Willey. And if I look at Brad, Brad is going in 7 to 5, and Aaron is showing up later, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Also notice that those notes that I entered into the assignment came in. Don't forget your PPE. That's really the first assignment, a crew assignment. And I was able to do that by creating the assignment inside of schedule, pulling it into Track. And the way that I did it was because it was a crew, I really have that structure over here for the foreman. And so I'm going to create a different kind of assignment now, because a lot of people do use crews, but not everybody uses crews. They might just be assigning individual people or equipment, and that's fine. You can do that as well. So I'm going to go to a slightly different date here, and rather than assigning a crew, I'm going to assign individual resources. Now, I can do that, and once again, the system is going to provide available resources through employees and equipment. It's going to suppress the ones that already have an assignment. Looks like we had a question come in. Someone was asking a question, is there a way to send out start times to employees via email? The answer is not today, but that is something that you will have in a future release. So we are actually in the process of building, like I've literally seen live working code, for a capability called alerts and notifications to individual employees. So in the next release of the software, you will be able to create assignments and change assignments. And then whenever you wish, either when you're creating or changing assignments, you'll be able to send out an email and or a text message to every individual employee that would tell them the nature of their assignment. So that is something that is being built as we speak and will actually be in the next release. So I'm going to grab some employees here. I'll grab a piece of equipment as well, maybe a pickup truck. Okay, so I can add these, and I don't necessarily need to have a specific crew, if you will, to add these assignments in. But one thing I will need to do is I'll need to leverage this requested by. So this is really how we can tell the system who needs those resources, and that will be the link that allows them to come in on a field log. So just as I've done there, I've created these. Tom Willey requested those. And so now I can go back And I could create a field log for that date for 7/19 from schedule on the 19th. And even though I don't have a crew, it's still going to recognize those resources and bring them into the field log for me. So there's my 2 employees, and there's the piece of equipment. So crew is very valuable. I don't necessarily have to have one. Those are a couple of different types of assignments. I do want to show you another type of, again, it's not strictly speaking an assignment, but it is a way of leveraging the system, and that is something called an event. So for a given employee on a number of different views here, I might go to an employee-centric view, for example, and maybe I'm managing my list of employees. I can put in something called an event. And an event is really just that. It's any type of event that occurs that you want to make note of. And you can create your own list of event types, and you can give them icons as well. But it's meant to account for things like if someone is off sick, if they're getting training, on vacation, whatever it might be. And so you can mark them essentially as having that event on that period of time. And those events will adjust their availability. So the system will know that Amy Sullivan is not available from the 19th to the 21st because they're out sick, and that event will help in that situation. So what we'll look at next is, now that we've created those assignments, I also want you to see how you can modify them. So we kind of mentioned this before, but the scheduling universe is nothing if not fluid. So a lot of times these events and these assignments are going to change, multiple times throughout the day. So for something like this pipe crew, let's say, for example, that I'm going to change the start from the Thursday to Friday. I could simply drag and drop that assignment. So I don't necessarily have to go into the assignment window and modify it that way. I could simply drag and drop it. And similarly, I could extend it out. So if it's now going to be a 5-day assignment instead of 3, I can just drag and drop that out. So pretty easy to make adjustments to these assignments on the fly. Another thing that a lot of people will do is they might say, well, yes, originally this was a 5-day assignment, but now we've discovered that there's going to be rain on, say, Monday, and so they're not going to be there for 2 days. It is still a 5-day assignment, but I'm going to have a 2-day break in the middle. What you'll see is that we give you a number of options, like either swapping out the crew, splitting it, or even ending the assignment. So in this case, I'm going to take that and say, well, there's going to be 2 days in the middle, so I'm just going to split that assignment. And you'll see, based on the day that I clicked on that assignment and did the split, it's now essentially going to chunk that up into 3 and 2. And so I could simply move that out and say, well, those are the 2 days that we're forecasting rain. I could even put in an event that might say rain delay, and that way I've kind of captured the information behind what happened. So easy to kind of chunk things up, make modifications. Other things that you can do as well would be things like, the employees are oftentimes have situations beyond their control. Someone might not be available for an assignment. So one of the things you can do is you could either do a swap or even relocate or even a substitution. Substitutions are meant to be kind of a short-term substitution. So for example, Andrew Luck is there for 3 days, but he's called in sick on just that one day. He's got 24-hour flu. He's going to be back in. I could create a substitution, and so it would allow me to go in and, again, leverage this assignment by keeping it up there, but I could then choose another available employee to fill that spot for 1 day. So while he's out, I'm going to have Andy Murray take his spot. And then when I do that, you would then actually see that spot where he is now out and where Andy Murray has taken his place. Now, it might be that in addition to that, maybe he's not out for a single day, but he's really out for the entire time. And so, Angela was injured or got sick, so we're really going to just basically swap her out. So I could swap that employee, which wouldn't be a short term, but would replace her for the remainder of that assignment. And so rather than just being out for a day, I'll say Austin Milbarge here is going to come in and save the day. And now you'll see that her assignment really ends on that date and Austin's begins. So a number of different ways of, again, quickly and easily modifying these. What we'll do really with our last few moments here is show the ability to manage needs too. So needs are a capability that exists inside of both Schedule and Track, and essentially it's a placeholder. So I could create an assignment, but I could also create a need. And a need is a generic placeholder. So it's the ability to say, look, I know I'm going to ask for a specific type of resource, but I don't know which specific resource I'm going to need. This might be a few weeks out in the future, and folks are pretty fluid in terms of coming and goings. So rather than put in a person's name when they're going to be out and about and moving around in terms of employees, instead I'm going to put in something a little bit more generic. And so you can put in a specific resource later on. So what I'll do is I'll show that capability here. So I can come in and say, well, look, I want to create a specific need for, say, the Concord Airport. And let's just say, for example, that I want it to be some type of Bobcat. So you'll see that circle icon. That's a need. So I might have 4 or 5 or 6 of those Bobcats, but the requirement is so far out in the future, I'm really not going to put in a specific unit. Rather than do that, I'm just going to say it's a Bobcat, and then I have a place here for a needs panel that would show me those needs, and then it would allow me to see what specific resources I have. So I need a Bobcat on those dates. Here are the 4 Bobcats that I have that could meet that need. And then I would be able to drag and drop that need onto a specific resource. And by doing that, I have now created an assignment for that Bobcat. You see it. So it's now transitioned from a need into a specific assignment. So thanks again for attending, and we look forward to seeing you at future webinars. Take care and have a great day.